Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session today on Demystifying AI for the Enterprise. I'm Cynthia Paranandam, joined by Curran O'Brien, and we're both part of the Amazon Web Services AI team. We're excited to have you with us today talking about what is undoubtedly a hot topic. We'll talk about making the value of AI real for all organizations thinking about using machine learning, and we'll provide some guidance to get started with or to advance enterprise AI initiatives. So let's get started.
So there's been a lot of hype around AI and its potential to drive that next wave of digital transformation in the enterprise. Each year, Gartner authors their report on their hype cycle for the newest emerging technologies. And for the last 4 years running, machine learning or deep learning has been at the peak of that hype cycle. But it's also interesting to remember that machine learning has been around for more than 50 years. And if you look at most of the common techniques that we use today, they were invented many decades ago. So what's changed recently is that with cloud computing, AI and machine learning has finally become accessible to the majority of businesses. It's not limited anymore to just the major tech giants and the hardcore academic researchers. And cloud has removed so many of the barriers that used to exist that would prevent us from experimenting and ultimately innovating with AI. So now, even risk-averse businesses are making it part of their strategies. And we're seeing a tipping point where that recent hype for these technologies is transitioning to actual impact on businesses. A recent IDC study estimated that this year alone, 40% of digital transformation initiatives will in some way take advantage of AI. And they also predicted that by 2021, global spending on AI and cognitive technologies will exceed $50 billion. So in fact, here at AWS, we're seeing real uptake of AI by our enterprise customers, and they're addressing use cases that are critical to their business. And perhaps more important, we're starting to see them create real measurable benefits. And these customers, they span industries and segments that really haven't been early adopters of transformational technologies in the past. If you look at this list, you'll see manufacturing conglomerates like GE and Siemens, Celgene and Bristol Myers Squibb and AstraZeneca and Life Sciences, Capital One and FICO and Liberty Mutual and financial services and insurance. So almost across the board, from verticals with the longest histories down to the major tech companies, we're seeing all of these organizations start to create new AI-enabled solutions. And as AI and machine learning's become the centerpiece of digital transformation for enterprises, we're seeing common areas of business where they're already driving new innovation. So customer experience is being transformed with everything from personalized digital experiences and conversational interfaces for new digital channels. Companies are innovating new products and services that would have been impossible to develop before. And machine learning's ability to generate more accurate predictions, that's starting to change how companies think about things like operations and decision making. And so many of these use cases are actually helping enterprises find new competitive advantages that they can use to drive their business forward. So while all of this creates an interesting dynamic where AI and machine learning still remains at the peak of its hype cycle, at the same time, we're also seeing it start to mature into a really proven and reliable enterprise technology.
Given the potential of AI and machine learning, the question for many leaders and their teams is how to get started. Now, this is going to differ for various use cases and projects. Sometimes you need to solve for smaller gains where you're trying to, for example, create efficiencies in existing processes. And sometimes you're starting transformational initiatives where you don't necessarily know how you'll get the answers you need. So whatever your goal may be, there are different options to get started. With AI services from AWS, you can easily add intelligence to your applications without needing machine learning skills. And that point is key since these services are pre-trained. So we've taken care of the machine learning work to ensure that you get the highest quality from these continuously learning APIs. If you're looking to create your own machine learning algorithms and models, Amazon SageMaker removes the complexity associated with machine learning, and it allows you to easily build, train, and deploy machine learning. The key here is that the tool takes care of managing the entire machine learning workflow. So that's everything from labeling and preparing data, training algorithms, and tuning and optimizing models for deployment to get you the predictions you need to make decisions. So let's have a closer look at the AI services and what they let you do. Language services allow you to quickly get insights from text. So with Amazon Translate, you can quickly and accurately translate text into essential languages. For example, you want to reduce your localization costs to deliver content and services to different countries. With Amazon Comprehend, you can apply advanced natural language processing to understand the meaning in text. Amazon Lex allows you to easily build conversational interfaces or chatbots, and this is really useful for areas like improving customer service. With Amazon Forecast, you can build accurate forecasts for your business, say to predict demand or for financial forecasting. And Amazon Personalize lets you provide targeted recommendations to deliver the personalization that customers want today. With vision services like Amazon Recognition, you can easily add images and video analysis. For example, if you want to analyze images in news or other content. And then TextRact lets you extract and analyze text in documents. Finally, with speech services like Poly, you can add voice through text-to-speech to make your applications more engaging. And with Transcribe, you can easily create transcripts from any audio content. Now let's have a closer look at how these services can come together to address use cases. There are many use cases, of course, so I'll just highlight a few where we're seeing AI services help customers improve their business outcomes. So the first use case we're talking about here is understanding the voice of your customer. We're talking about making sense of all that input coming in from the various channels we all have access to today. Customers of all types are spending a lot of time engaging with digital content. So businesses are sitting on a lot of unstructured data. So that's everything like customer emails, social media, product reviews. And this is data that could be better mined and understood, especially to serve customers better. So we see customers get to this goal using Amazon Comprehend and other AI services. So with Comprehend, companies can really dig into text to determine the relationship in textual data. They can extract key phrases and get sentiment analysis, such as the positive or negative sentiment in text. To illustrate that, let's look at the example of VideoPeel, which is a startup that provides a user-generated video platform. Now, the challenge for VideoPeel was how to manage a growing amount of video content. They had thousands and thousands of videos, and they needed to surface the right ones to their customers, and at scale, for example, for their enterprise customers. So they use Amazon Comprehend, Transcribe, and Recognition for customer research, live research. Essentially, they are automating analysis of user-generated content to produce dynamic customer personas. So if you look at the workflow, VideoPeel can use Transcribe to create transcripts of even the most technical content, even jargon-filled content. This is then fed into Comprehend to extract keywords and to find relationships and insights into what's actually being said. These insights then let VideoPeel's consumers generate tags to help their customers find content. And finally, using Recognition builds on top of that by analyzing images for content moderation to act as a security filter. So following from that, let's take a look at how these types of insights from understanding customers can be used to personalize their experiences. There's a lot of research indicating that consumers, as much as 80% of them, are more likely to make a purchase when brands offer these personalized experiences. And machine learning is increasingly being used for personalization, for targeted product and content recommendations, tailored search results, and marketing promotions. And it's using all that customer data, that preference data, that feedback data. But to develop a sophisticated recommendation system can be complex, and we're seeing with Amazon Personalized that customers can do it faster, and they don't have to worry about the underlying machine learning. This is the same recommendation technology in Personalized that's used by Amazon.com. So you provide your inputs like purchases, signups, page views, and then the things you want to recommend, like the products or articles, and then Personalize delivers the recommendations. So, for example, this is the way that Domino's Pizza, who we know is one of the largest pizza businesses in the world, this is how they do it. Domino's uses personalized to analyze a customer preferences, as well as look at contextual information like timing and location about their customers, and then they can deliver targeted communications like special deals. And then they can really personalize at scale for their entire customer database, and then use this through all of their digital channels. Now, improving customer service is always an important topic for enterprises. Modernizing the contact center is a significant opportunity for business across industries, and we see the prevalence of it in retail, in financial services, and healthcare. Gartner says that maybe 25% of customer service operations will use virtual assistants by 2020. And so in this area, we see AI services really provide faster automation for various aspects, and with a high degree of accuracy. And it still feels human, which is essential. So conversational AI with Amazon Lex can help to automate handling requests, and it frees up your agents to help resolve customer issues. And then you add to that Transcribe, for example, to log those audio and video messages for analysis, or Translate to get it to the right languages. And then applying Amazon Comprehend can really help to analyze those customer requests and parse potential answers. So you see these services coming together to automate the call center workflow to help both employees and customers. Just one of many examples here, let's look at Liberty Mutual Insurance. And they use Amazon Lex to help answer employee questions, to increase their efficiency and the productivity, and to quickly get them the information they need to help customers. So the use of services like Lex take advantage of natural language, which means it's easy for employees to get started. So with conversational AI, they don't have to learn a whole new system. The digital assistant can answer common questions or help with simple tasks. So while the Liberty Mutual team considered building its own language processing service, it just made more sense to take advantage of something already developed so the team could progress quickly and to experiment. And now that it's proven, they can easily integrate it into their existing internal productivity suite. Another critical element here was the data. In developing the digital assistant for employees, there wasn't a lot of existing data. So the team needed to sit down with users to research the kinds of user issues and problems that they needed to help with. And some of this data also revealed how people in different countries use different words and phrases to say the same thing. So it was really essential to get to ground truth with the data so that customers would ultimately get the right results from the conversational AI. So while Liberty Mutual initially looked to increase productivity on the employee side in order to help customers, the conversational AI will also be applied in the call center sphere to helping customers quickly find the answers to simple questions without having to wait to speak to a representative. For example, if they want to find out who's responsible for a given claim or whether a customer's coverage includes a rental car. So forecasting is essential for many industries. Take retail, for example. This is an area where we're seeing a significant increase in the use of machine learning. According to McKinsey, demand forecasting through machine learning can reduce errors by up to 50%, with lost sales due to product unavailability reduced by up to 65%. Now, the challenge is that a lot of these companies today use a variety of inputs for forecasting, from spreadsheets to some really complex financial planning software. So they're predicting product demand or maybe financial performance. So a lot of big performance predictions happening with this data and with the software. But these tools often build forecasts by looking at historical data. And this approach can be difficult to produce accurate forecasts for large data sets, especially when there's irregular trends in many variables in the data itself. So with Amazon Forecast, you no longer have to rely on this historical data to make your forecasts. Using the same technology as Amazon.com, you can build forecasts that look at time series data. So you can combine data points that change over time. It could be pricing, discounts, web traffic, number of employees, things like that, as well as unique data points like product features and store locations, and all these inputs go in towards driving more accurate forecasts. Now, sometimes customers are looking for something different, where they want to select their own algorithm and build their own custom models. But machine learning can still be very hard to do. There are a lot of steps involved. So let's take a step back and review the steps involved in the machine learning process. As always, you start with the data. You need to collect the data, prepare the data to make it more suitable for machine learning models. Then you need to choose the right algorithm based on the problem that you're trying to solve and then optimize it for your setup. Then moving on from there, you need to set up, manage, and operate the training environment to train the data in the model that you've built. Now, when you actually go to train your model, you might have to iterate multiple times. This is a highly iterative process that goes through trial and error steps to get the model trained. So rinse and repeat many times. Once you have a model that is ready, then that's good enough for production, you need to deploy this in a live environment. That environment or infrastructure really needs to scale depending on business needs and also have the ability to easily manage and operate the trained model in that live environment. So as you can see, this entire process can be difficult, it's time-consuming, and it's iterative, which leaves many organizations and developers thinking that machine learning is complex and it's difficult to use. So Amazon SageMaker. With SageMaker, businesses can use AI at scale because it's really removing the complexity associated with the many steps of machine learning that we just talked about. It simplifies every step of the workflow. So Amazon SageMaker comes with a number of capabilities to solve the complexity associated with machine learning. First of all, to begin with, SageMaker comes with a pre-built notebook environment, providing you with popular Jupyter notebooks that are pre-built and managed. So there's no need to set up a separate notebook infrastructure. The notebooks come with industry-leading frameworks like TensorFlow that are pre-built and managed for you. And then we also provide sample notebooks to address very common real-world use cases that are solved by machine learning. So it's likely that there's one, that's ready to go for your use case. Now, the build component of SageMaker comes with a number of built-in high-performance algorithms that are commonly used in machine learning. We keep adding to this library of algorithms and also enhance the existing algorithms pre-built within SageMaker. As I mentioned earlier, the leading frameworks including MXNet, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Chainer, and many others are included with SageMaker. The algorithms are optimized to perform 10 times better than the nearest implementation with Amazon SageMaker. A big component also is the ability of the algorithm to train with a single pass of data. Overall, this leads to faster training without any memory-bound limitations, and it costs less due to the fact that the training is completed faster. With the new SageMaker Ground Truth, you can do just that. So you can get to your ground truth with your data. And you typically need large volumes of training data to create models to provide accurate predictions. With Ground Truth, you've got built-in workflows for common labeling tasks. You can automate and improve the accuracy of your labeled data. Now, when we complete the build module, SageMaker provides a training engine on a complete and solid training platform. So training can be done with one API call. It's one-click training. So once you give the training engine the data that you've built along with the algorithm, the training engine will take care of the scaling, the distributing the data, and then managing the complete environment for you without any of the operational overhead. So once this model is fully trained, you then move on to deployment, which is again one-click deployment. This means that in a single API call, you can deploy the trained machine learning models into production. Now that the deployment is done with a fully managed hosting infrastructure that is supported with auto scaling, the infrastructure can expand or contract depending on your requirements and needs of the business. It also comes with monitoring and logging features to track your activity. Once the training is completed, we move on to the hosting side, where we provide a series of features with SageMaker like A/B testing. So if you want to deploy different versions of the model with different weights and observe the performance, SageMaker allows you to do that. you can then determine which version of the model is a better performing model. So now that we've kind of gone over how SageMaker works, let's see how customers are actually using SageMaker today. So healthcare is an area where we're seeing machine learning being used to improve patient outcomes and to help healthcare professionals do their jobs better and more efficiently. One of my favorite stories is that of GE Healthcare. They're provider of a wide range of healthcare and life sciences products. And GE is also the pioneer of X-ray technology, which has been around for some time, since the 1890s, in fact. But the industry as a whole was not using the potential of these medical images for better insights. So with machine learning, GE Healthcare looks inside these medical images, so chest X-rays, head CTs, and they can understand what's going on at or in advance of expert physician levels. So using SageMaker, GE Healthcare created machine learning algorithms that are capable of distinguishing normal scans from abnormal scans that may require immediate attention. And their system can process and then learn from thousands of scans. So they can use the data to detect anomalies, and then they can do it more accurately and efficiently, and they're also reducing costs. This means ultimately that they can detect problems earlier, and then they can actually treat them earlier before the patient feels the symptoms. So with this, radiologists can prioritize patients needing the most attention. Improving health outcomes, it's a powerful use case where machine learning has a real impact. So another interesting story is that of Intuit, who we all know for services like QuickBooks and TurboTax, especially around tax season. So like GE Healthcare, Intuit uses machine learning for a variety of use cases within the company. The TurboTax product, for example, is powered by an AI system that's encoded with over 80,000 pages of US tax requirements and instructions. So they're applying a range of AI techniques like natural language processing and data extraction to all of these documents. Now, Intuit also uses SageMaker to develop machine learning algorithms for their expense finder feature. It automatically pulls a year's worth of banking transactions to find deductible business expenses. Now they're able to identify an average of over $4,000 in business expenses. So it's important to point out here that Intuit now can really scale machine learning. With SageMaker and high-performance compute on AWS, what used to take them weeks in model training can now take just hours. Finally, shifting gears to the world of sports, a great AI story is how the NFL is using machine learning to enhance the fan experience and also to help players and coaches understand the game. So the National Football League has over 180 million fans. And while fans go to the stadiums for each season, over 90% of these NFL fans catch the game online or on TV or on mobile. Now, while the NFL has been tracking game stats for a long time, they were pretty basic and they really didn't reveal the full scope of the story. So the NFL wanted a more advanced system to provide insights about game dynamics, like the results of particular player lineups or what factors really impacted a player's performance. So now the NFL has the Next Gen Stats program, and it uses sophisticated tracking technology collected from these RFID devices in the shoulder pads of every player, and that are also embedded in the stadiums. And they capture data about players on the field and things like the speed and the direction in which they're moving. Then, with machine learning and SageMaker, the platform allows the NFL to create and deploy machine learning models which can interpret the gameplay. So the results help fans understand the game better, like why some passing plays are more difficult than others. For example, with machine learning, you can even quantify the sheer improbability of a certain play, like that pass from quarterback Nick Foles in the Super Bowl 52. So by tracking data from various sensors, the system determined that the Foles pass was completed with a probability of just 19%.
So we've talked about how AI has become, really central to digital transformation for enterprises. And we've reviewed common use cases and real-world examples where AI is already making an impact. But now I wanted to shift gears and talk a bit about how you can look to put AI in action to start to advance your own initiatives. And down that path, we've identified really 3 core considerations that have been common amongst our most successful customers. And the first of those considerations is something we like to call creating the loop. So that is connecting your AI initiatives to your business outcomes. And that really starts with identifying the right use case for AI. Now, there's a lot of discussion about using AI to support new transformational solutions, and we consistently see our customers creating those very successfully. But what's often overlooked is that enterprises oftentimes see their strongest ROI by adding AI capabilities to their existing solutions. And in many cases, those incremental performance increases can have really significant benefits. So think about catching twice as much fraud as you did before, or maybe you're cutting your forecasting errors down by half. So because of this, we see a lot of successful customers start their AI journey with their existing solutions. And a big reason is then the return on investment is understood up front. They can build their experience and skill set in that process, and then ultimately they can turn their attention in those newfound skills to creating those net new solutions. But regardless of which path you choose, there's also a couple of things that you should avoid when you're selecting an AI use case. So the first is always be mindful. AI solutions are typically a black box, so you likely won't understand how the result is made, whether that's a prediction or a classification or some other type of output. And so this can have ramifications for those use cases that have legal and compliance restrictions or where you really need detailed auditability. It's also good to remember that AI is usually not appropriate for fully automating a decision where you need to have 100% certainty. But even in those use cases, you can still oftentimes use AI, perhaps by making the decision-making process more efficient or in some way more effective for human decision makers. So our next recommendation is to remember that it's okay to start small. And in most cases, you can really begin with a pilot project of limited scope, test the viability of your use case, and then validate that the end solution is worth that investment. You can limit that scope in a number of ways. You can limit the data set, the user base, or even perhaps select a smaller part of your overall use case to test up front. And when you're testing that use case, you also want to be sure to define your success metrics up front and make sure that those metrics are relevant to your business. So think about a percentage increase in your forecasting accuracy. Think about a percentage decrease in your customer churn, something along those lines where you understand the business impact. And because you've defined that success metric up front, you can then work backwards to design the right scope of a pilot and ultimately help ensure that your fully scaled solution is really driving your target outcome. And it's good to remember as well, AI and machine learning, it's really best accomplished using an experimental mindset. And so pilot projects are a key component to having that iterative approach. And once you have a successful pilot, then you can vet the results against those success metrics before you scale your investment. So that way, if needed, you can pivot your approach much earlier in your project lifecycle. And after you've vetted your solution with a pilot, you should be ready now to scale out your project to try to achieve your full desired business benefits. And the first step there is to operationalize the output of your model. So that starts by inserting those outputs and those results into your applications or business workflows. Now, this can happen a number of ways. We've seen folks that have taken a custom ML model and they've actually shared that out to multiple applications using a web service. Other times, that prediction or output is something that you want to share with human decision makers as part of their decision workflow. So that might take the result of a report or a dashboard or something else that's shared amongst other human decision makers. But ultimately, it's important to really think about the use case of what you're trying to achieve and what's the best way to take that model and help it achieve the desired effect. You'll also want to think about operationalizing the model itself. So, unlike a rules-based query in traditional BI, where you typically build that query one time and run it repetitively, machine learning models actually change and evolve over time, which means that they're going to require ongoing support, management, and maintenance, similar to how you think about operating a business application. So you should go into it with a strategy for maintaining and updating a number of elements, the data, the model itself, and even how that gets deployed to your end users. And then once your solution is scaled into full production, that's when it's a good time to circle back. And now you can measure if those results have scaled at the same level. And so AWS has some programs to help with that. The cloud economics team creates tools and frameworks that can help with value realization activities. And you can also look at the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, which can help you measure value as part of a larger scaled cloud transformation. So something we hear time and time again is that AI programs, they continue to evolve over time, and that's on a number of levels. So first is that while you should see the benefits of your new solution right away, those models are iterative and you can expect them to improve over time. So think about a new model that has 80% accuracy, and with a lot of use cases, that can be a pretty significant impact. Now imagine that your ongoing development of that model is reducing errors by 10% each month. So after a year, you'd have a model that has 95% accuracy, which is a very significant difference in those outcomes. So a couple of things to think about. First, you should expect your working team to continue well after your project goes into production, rather than just moving on to the next initiative. You should also revisit your initiative down the road to recalculate your ROI and those results, given that it typically will improve over time. And so just as the model itself can evolve, you also want to take a new approach and a new look at your solution to see if your approach to that machine learning model is going to change as you acquire new skills and capabilities. So with data being at the core of AI solutions, having the right data strategy should also be an early component of any initiative. And that starts with finding the relevant data that may live in various silos around your organization. Multiple studies have found that at least 4 out of 5 organizations struggle with data silos, especially as it relates to customer data. So in some cases, you may be able to leverage data management tools like AWS Glue that can create data catalogs, and those can be helpful in finding the right source data to compile and model. But regardless, it's smart to expect real effort to locate the right siloed data that you're going to want to use for your initiative. So the next step is to assess your data. And a good place to start is by thinking about how much data you have. And we recommend evaluating that across 3 qualities: velocity, quantity, and freshness. So velocity is how often data is collected. Think about if you're collecting data points once per second versus once per day. And freshness is how recent your data is. And then of course, quantity is the overall amount of data that you have available. Now, all 3 of these factors can affect your models in different ways. Quantity is the most critical to success, as you almost always need large amounts of data to do effective machine learning. But velocity and freshness are really important for creating accurate models. So for example, imagine a machine learning model that predicts housing prices on a week-by-week basis. So you might have large quantities of historical data, but you likely need a high velocity of fresh data to ensure that your models are going to reflect the current conditions in the real estate market. And in some cases, just a lot of historical data can actually become a hindrance, as it might skew your model away from what's currently relevant and important. Another recommendation is to invest enough time exploring and profiling your data, especially if you plan to create custom machine learning models. So understanding correlations, trends, outliers, biases, all these attributes of your data set that you know up front, you can use that when you're creating your models, and especially helpful when you're selecting which variables to include. Exploring your data up front can also help you identify data issues well in advance, so you can start to rectify them proactively. And that's really a good first step towards cleansing your data. Missing values, inconsistent values, formatting issues, really all data quality issues can affect the results of any advanced analytics program, but those issues are compounded when you're thinking about machine learning. Because with ML, the bad data is actually informing the quality of the model itself, and then the bad data is also becoming an input to the resulting calculation. So we really recommend identifying and addressing your data quality issues fairly early in your process, just to make sure that you're creating a clean and accurate model. Now, for most enterprises, their earliest AI initiatives use a machine learning technique known as supervised learning. So that requires your training data to have inputs, but also outputs, which are known as labels. So for supervised learning, it's really critical to have the right quantity and accuracy of label data to create an accurate model. And that's what we call ground truth. So a good example of this would be a set of streetscape images where you want to use machine learning to identify which of those images contain a stop sign. So if you're going to train and test your model, you're going to need an existing data set where you've already labeled which images have a stop sign and which don't. And in many cases, it can be beneficial to invest in additional labeling of your data to help improve the training of your models. Amazon's SageMaker Ground Truth, which we've talked about earlier, that can help automate much of that process. And it also gives you access to a marketplace of human laborers through Amazon's Mechanical Turk service. So as with any new technology, it's important to build your teams with the right skills and domain expertise to be successful. So you're thinking about both the people and the technology side of that adoption. And we've seen a lot of enterprises have success with cross-functional project teams. And the common thread that we typically see is they have data scientists or other similar experts, more traditional developers that understand the applications and use cases, and then business subject matter experts that can bring context to the discussion. And a number of our customers have expressed that at times it can be difficult to hire enough of those skills, especially data scientists, so that they can start to scale their AI capabilities. And while external hiring is one path forward, it really isn't your only choice. First of all, we always recommend looking to develop new data science skills in your existing personnel, whether that's through training and education or perhaps learning tools like Deep Racer and Deep Lens. There's also a range of consulting partners. AWS Partner Network has quite a few of these who can help work side by side, help get your first programs running, and can also help provide that extra set of skills that you need to launch those early initiatives. And a final option for you is you can work with the Amazon Machine Learning Solutions Lab, which we'll cover in more detail in just a moment. So historically, much of the pain around running an AI program was the cost and the effort that goes into procuring and implementing and managing the specialized compute infrastructure that's needed for effective ML. So training machine learning models, that can require large amounts of graphical processor units, but that's usually just for short periods of time, only when models are being trained or retrained. And in most deep learning applications, so much of the resources are actually a process called inference, which is when you're making predictions using an already trained model. And so that's best accomplished actually with a totally different processor type than you usually would use for training. And that goes on and on. So with AWS, enterprises have that option where they can now elastically provision just right compute resources for all of their machine learning workloads. And that's really important because rather than focusing on the procurement, rather than focusing on the hardware and the infrastructure side, your teams can really stay focused on those core subject matter areas, things like data science, things like business domain, and take away a lot of that undifferentiated heavy lifting around the infrastructure side. But it can also create lots of economies of scale because you have a lot of compute resources that are being used sporadically and on demand. So that ability to provision elastic resources when you need them can really enable significant cost savings. So as you keep those considerations in mind and you're ready to go down the path and start creating your first AI or ML powered solutions, AWS has some things to help you get started. The Amazon Machine Learning Solutions Lab is a really great program that pairs your team with Amazon ML experts. And so they work alongside you to help accelerate your use of machine learning. So they help you prepare your data, build and train models, and will actually help you get your first solutions into production and help enable new skills, capabilities with AI and ML along the way. AWS also offers a really robust set of practical education options to help you build new ML skills in your organization. And what's exciting there is that curriculum is really based on the same material that Amazon uses to train their own developers. So thanks so much for your time and attention today. We really appreciate it. And if you have any more questions, we encourage you to reach out to your account team or come visit us to learn more at aws.ai.